Hello everyone and welcome to this week's reviews. A new animation studio is here named Locksmith Animation, and for their first feature they depict a society where every child has their own robot. So what happens when a child receives a defective one? We find out in Ron's Gone Wrong. I think the premise of Ron's Gone Wrong is one with a lot of potential, especially in showing the way young people nowadays are attached to technology. There's also a lot of comedy that could be gained from this story. However, I was left largely underwhelmed by this movie and where it took the story. I think the movie does an okay job of making the lead character Barney sympathetic, and we do get a few funny moments when he's introduced to his malfunctioning robot companion. However, as the story continued on, I found myself losing further interest, and the jokes did not really land for me. I did already start the film thinking about the effect on privacy these robots have, as they are connected entirely to their owners. There's a lot you can do with this, especially with the continued scrutiny on companies like Facebook and Google. The villain is even designed to slightly resemble Steve Jobs. However, this is only really explored in the third act, and just barely. While we get some nice quiet scenes of Barney and Ron bonding, there are also a lot of scenes of characters screaming which got on my nerves. I also did not find Barney's grandmother nearly as funny as the filmmakers did. I actually thought by far the funniest joke was an end credits gag. There were also around 4 or 5 points where it seems like the story is wrapping up, but then another plot thread is introduced that we have to resolve. Animation-wise, Ron's Gone Wrong is visually appealing. There was a lot of creativity in showing the robot's various abilities, and the designs are able to be unique and distinct. There are some neat little visual gags that appear throughout the film too. The animators at DNEG absolutely deserve credit for their work on the film. Overall, I just found Ron's Gone Wrong to be a mixed bag. However, I'm still excited to see what Locksmith does in the future. Next up is the newest movie from Wes Anderson, The French Dispatch. If you're familiar with Wes Anderson, you know what to expect at this point. He has a very specific style that carries through in all of his movies. The French Dispatch is absolutely a movie of his making, as it features many of his trademarks, like his usual repertoire of actors, deadpan reactions, and perfectly aligned shots. However, it departs from the likes of The Royal Tenenbaums and I Love Dogs in that it does not use a larger narrative that runs through the entire film. Instead, the film is formatted like the magazine at its center, as we're treated to a series of stories. It's a clever way of presenting the film, and it does give the feel of going through the pages of a Reader's Digest or The New Yorker. The opening obituary of the now-deceased editor-in-chief is able to establish the world and how this magazine is presented. My favorite segment, funnily enough, was the shortest one, with Owen Wilson presenting his interpretation of this small French town. I actually would not have minded hanging out with this character a little more, although I do appreciate Anderson wanting to keep this section short. The rest of the movie gives us 3 stories revolving around a different part of the magazine. One serves as a farce on the art collector's world and how it values paintings that don't seem that special on the surface. Adrian Brody is quite funny in this section, along with a humorous turn from Benicio del Toro as a painter in prison. Another story involves a kidnapping, and of the 3 longer segments, I thought this was the strongest, thanks to Jeffrey Wright's narration and an amusing animated sequence. The least interesting part of The French Dispatch is a segment set during a student revolution. While a few funny lines and visual gags pop up, I did feel it dragged a little, and wasn't that invested in Frances McDormand and Timothée Chalamet's arcs. Christoph Waltz is also completely wasted here. With that said, Wes Anderson is one of those filmmakers who manages to pull you in more often than not with his directing style, and that's all over the film. He cleverly plays around with the aspect ratio, and the production design is fantastic. I also really liked Alexandre Desplat's score. Overall, The French Dispatch serves as another example of his skills as a filmmaker and a solid entry in his filmography. Thank you for watching this week's reviews, and I'll see you next time.